I've always been doing art. My background when I left school was architecture and design, and that kind of led me into theatre and puppet making and all of very hands-on art making. And little by little, I was taking evening courses in various things, which led to a diploma, led to a degree, led to a master's. So I've always been doing art or design in some form. And both in terms of my degree and in my master's, they were both very experimental, and it was very easy to kind of go from one medium to another. So I tried lots of things: sculpture, filmmaking, printing, so a lot of times the medium wouldn't dictate what I'm going to do, rather than the idea, and that might lead me to filmmaking or to printmaking, or so that's kind of that's what sort of drives my artistic practice, is kind of what I'm curious about, exploring or discovering or expressing, how best to sort of do that. I quite often say I'm a lens-based artist, and because I use the lens in printmaking, I use it in filmmaking, I use it in installation as well, and I like kind of like playing around with analog and digital as well. So the camera can be very physical as well as very dematerial as well. I feel that the lens is an extension of the body, so I usually use the lens attached to my body or handheld, and rather than placing it separate to me and looking like an observant eye on me, or on whatever I'm working on. So for that reason, a lot of my films might have the walking motion, or the film that I'm working on at the minute here, I attached the GoPro to the top of my backpack, so it moves with me. In other work I've done, sometimes I've turned the camera back on me, so I'm very, so it's almost like the body, rather than the body looking back at the body looking through the lens. And other ones, like if it's hand shaken, I won't remove it. It's all part of it being an extension of the body. So I became very interested in the musician Komitas. I've been to Yerevan and Armenia before, so little by little I've picked up on him, and I love his music. And part of some of the research I looked into learning about him was that he, as well as being a composer and a composer for the piano, he also collected Armenian folk songs, and he collected them in the villages, and but as we know, in Armenian history, there was a huge genocide, and a lot of things got destroyed and lost. So I kind of wanted to respond in some way to my experience of the city, and the idea that there's folk songs of their time, and also there's folk songs that have gone missing. So in some ways I wanted to see, well, how could they be created and continue to be created? So the project I'm looking at here is responding to the city of Yerevan, which I love very much, and also discovering about Komitas' work and his work with the Armenian folk songs and the Armenian instruments as well. So I've been doing a lot of listening. I've gone to the Komitas museum as well, institute, and I'm kind of letting them trickle into my sort of psyche and seeing how they play out together, the sounds of the city, the sounds of Komitas, and the Armenian instruments as well. Well, one of the things that Komitas has said is that songs belong to their place and they belong to their time. So I think if I'm going to do some exploring of Komitas's work, I feel I need to be in Armenia. And I just like, it's such a privilege to have dedicated time and space to create something and while I'm here, you know, and I'm working on another project at home, and it's a long 2-year project. So because there's no sort of tangible finished thing for so many months, I really relish the idea that I would be able to create something within that that I'd have and I'd work on and I'd complete to a certain stage, which I'm nearing actually. So I'm happy that I've taken a step out of that and a step into this, and a really focused 3 weeks here. Yerevan is where I'm kind of focused on in the landscape, and it's such a busy landscape, and it's like the light certainly physically is very different, and the soundscape is also very different, because one of the things I noticed straight off was that there's very few places in the city you can go to that you won't hear the sound of traffic, which to me is quite unusual, because even within Dublin there's parks, whatever, and you know, they'd be large enough that you'd be away from the sound of the traffic. So the sound of human endeavour is everywhere in Yerevan. So that's quite striking. The other thing is, because I am living in Ireland and it is an island, the sea and the water is very present in my work that I make in Ireland, because that film that I'm taking a break out of is all about a river which connects me to my mother. So, and I've done a lot of work about being an island. I did a project in 2016, which was at the height of migration across Europe. And I did a project in relation to physical boundaries and the ability to travel. So that was all about walking out to the sea, to finding my limit, to come back and repeating. So that's a big difference, because water is present in the city as a drinking fountain. It is really what struck me as well, because they're everywhere and the water is fantastic. And one of the songs that I've made in the group of 6 songs is responding to the fountain, the water, and the rhythm of it, and placing that or sitting that against some of the rhythm of the folk music, Armenian folk music. So that would be another way. And then, of course, the brightness of the light. Because I'm quite sensitive to light. I've done another film that was all about my sensitivity to light as well. So, so they will be 3 big things that will be quite different here. Actually, I was up at the Cascades for the dancing, so I was very struck by the similarity with our Cayley coming together and celebrating through group dance as well. And other ways, I suppose the human interactions as well would be quite similar. There's a lot of banter at home that's like chatting over and back and joking. There's an awful lot of very animated conversations. So that would be another similarity as well. Because that actually has been very exciting to me to work on. I had a really good chat with a lady down in the Komitas Museum Institute, and she was sort of giving me a distilled version of Armenian music. And one of the things is like those microtones that aren't quite on the tone, they're not even on the quarter tone sometimes. And then to my Western ear, And even Irish music, they would be on the tone or the semitone. It feels like it vibrates in a different way. And that has been something I've been trying to explore through my film and my sound, is just my kind of Western need to go to those half tones and tones, and the Armenian instruments that can just kind of shift and not land on them. So placing them together is gives quite an energy, and it also gives me an awareness of all of my sort of background in music and what would I be used to listening to, and how it guides me when I'm listening to music. And that resonates with Komitas as well, because he was trained in Western music and he composed in Western music as well. And also he collected Armenian music, and it influenced his songs and his pieces as well. So maybe like that's kind of like a metaphor for Armenia, that it's like it's got that Western influence and it's got that Eastern influence, and it comes through in the music. It's always a possibility, yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the work that I do, my next project, it's all self-driven and I make my own kind of agenda. So a lot of it, like even my career path, is just like stepping stones. One leads to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. And that tends to be what happens. So who knows, with this focus on music here, how that sort of then comes back with other projects as well. That's a really good question, because I have a set of parameters that I discover or I set when I'm working, and they become things that become really focused as I'm working. But because I'm working in experimental film, which I love about experimental film, is that I don't want to lead with that agenda. I want people to watch it, to listen to it, to experience it in their body, in a space, and weave in and out of what they may think it's about and what's coming up in their mind, and just to experience it. So I never like to, let's say, introduce my work before, because it's really experiential, and I want you to sit down, and if it resonates with you on some level, that's great. That's what I want the audience to bring out things, whether it's memories or something funny or whatever it is, to experience it. And if they want to make sense of it in some way, they can, or if they just want to see it as a visual and an audio piece, they can as well. Because I've woven in some of the intervals of Komitas's work, some little motifs as well, I imagine that Armenians would sit down and go, oh, that's from the da-da-da, whatever song it is, or they'll be familiar with even the pattern of an instrument makes. You know, they can anticipate probably where the next interval will go or whatever. And so to somebody who's not familiar with their work, they will be listening to it in a totally different way. Because, you know, when you're watching something or listening to something and something comes in that's familiar, it sort of brings you there. But if it's not familiar, it's a totally different experience. You know, that's why I put quite a noticeable filter on the visuals in my films, the songs that I've done, is because I'm very aware I'm doing it from a Western point of view, that I'm not an expert, that I'm literally just picking things up by research and by listening. And so I only have a surface level of the depth of Komitas's work and Armenian folk music as well. So so there might be really obvious things to an Armenian audience that went, oh yeah, you're putting in, like for an Irish, that would be the diddly eye or whatever it would be, that maybe they're really obvious to an Armenian ear, and they won't be at all to anyone who's not familiar with Armenian music. Okay, thanks.